Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Martin O'Neill. On July 14th, at the Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission meeting, the Bethel Church on North Roger Street was nominated as a local historic district. Historic Preservation Program Manager Gloria Colombrania presented the staff's recommendation to approve the nomination.
Staff finds the property not only meets but vastly exceeds the minimum criteria listed in the code. So this is all information about Bethel. This church historically provided a communal space, and it still does, for many members of Bloomington's Black community in the early 20th century. Prominent members such as Mrs. Maddie Jacobs Fuller, Race Fuller, is it Fuller or Fuller?
Fuller, Maddie Jacobs Fuller.
Fuller raised a considerable amount of money to make sure that the congregation owned the land and the building. The property meets criteria 1C because it has served as one of the main social cultural hubs of Bloomington's Black community, as a social hub for congregants and for Indiana University students alike. The property meets criteria 2B because this is an exemplary example of John L. Nichols, perhaps Bloomington's earliest architects of renown's work. The property meets criteria 2G because the building itself, through its elegant design, provides a solid example of late classical revival style with some hints of Tudor in it.
A representative of the Bethel congregation spoke, saying that they would like the building to be designated as a historic district.
Being on the historic site, we are a historic church. I appreciate Elizabeth Mitchell and Gloria Collins for bringing this to our attention. I think they tried once before and kind of fell to the wayside. We'd love nothing more than to have this be, our church be on a historic list, because it is just that, and we enjoy it.
Colombrania discussed the style of the building and why the church has such a unique classification.
Yes, so I was going off the Shard survey, which is not, the Tudor part I was struggling seeing it, except for maybe a detail on the arch, but that was going off the Shard survey. The reality is that that was a very eclectic period in design, where architects, and especially Nichols, was experimenting with a lot of different styles and just doing a lot of different experimental things just before the modern era kicked in. So,
Commission member Duncan Campbell asked if the description of the style could be more specific.
So I guess I would just suggest that maybe that description be elaborated to better describe the architecture, since architecture is one of the criteria.
Sounds good.
And I think that I actually like the description in the National Register nomination better, but I think your comments about Nichols' influence are accurate. I know quite a bit about him and his other buildings in Bloomington, and his sort of trademark was to combine different kinds of styles, sort of pre-postmodern, actually, to sort of pick up on different.
So it wasn't Venturi after all.
And actually, what's the style called? There's a name for what he was doing. I can't think of what it's called right now. But I'd be happy to help you with that description if you want. I think we ought to be accurate about it.
Commission member Matthew Seddon commented that he would be glad to see the building officially designated.
You should all feel very proud of your church and what you've done, and the history, and how well you've cared for it, and how well it represents the strength of people who have been oppressed. And it stands in Bloomington as a symbol of that resistance. And I feel lucky to be able to vote yes on this one.
During public comment, another member of Bethel Church said that she was proud the church would be considered a local historic district.
Just as a member of Bethel and a leader, I am very proud.
The commission unanimously voted to approve the historic designation. At the Monroe County Board of Health meeting on July 14th, Clinic Manager Lori Terrell gave an update on the public health clinic.
So since last month, we have continued on our outreach programs. We have been working with the Latino population as an identified community group that we're working for wellness screening. June got 50 individuals coming to wellness screening for blood pressure, A1Cs. Unfortunately, we did see about a 90% return for pre-diabetic. So we're kind of looking at ramping up a little bit in some of our outreach, but then also looking at how we can do A1Cs and get them immediate results versus the lab process that takes a little bit of time and tracking them back down to give them the results. So we have purchased an A1C unit and we'll be starting that here in the next couple of weeks once we get everybody trained and up and ready for that. We had both our COVID state vaccine site review and our VFC site review. Both of those came back with very glowing results, no remedial action needed for any of the vaccine processes that we have. We are in the process through Zara working with Joe to get our back to school clinics scheduled. We are planning on the fall group to add in any immunization in addition to flu and COVID, because we know that there were a lot of kids who kind of got out of getting all their vaccinations in with the COVID period. So we're trying to help the schools by capturing those in their first school requirement days. And then we'll of course be back there in the fall for the next rounding as well.
Incoming Health Department Director Lori Kelly gave an update on COVID-19 rates in Monroe County.
For COVID updates, COVID levels are increasing across the country, but numbers are really staying pretty steady within the county. We haven't seen any big fluctuations.
Health Department Director Penny Caudill added that Monroe County is in a medium level of transmission due to a slight increase in hospitalizations.
Transmission's high, but it's not, going up quickly. Yep, they're staying pretty stable. We've had a little bit of an increase in hospitalizations. That's kind of why we're at medium level, but nothing big.
The board then continued to discuss the 2023 budget. Caudill explained that they analyzed the last 3 years' worth of expenses to see what the average costs were to help predict future expenses. She said that fuel costs have increased over the 3-year period, and they could consider budgeting more for fuel in the future.
We did go through and kind of look at what we've done over the past 3 years, kind of what's that average we've been spending, where are we at now? We were a little surprised by our fuel and gas lines. That was a little interesting, and I don't have a good answer for that. Maybe we're just routing things really well, right? The fuel line, and so that is
for efficiency.
Yeah. 20100. We're on track. We're good. We're not looking to deplete that. If you look how we're trending, we could increase that a little bit. I know you talked, Dr. Pritchard, about wanting to maybe increase that. So we certainly could. That line is for our fleet vehicles. So the fuel line is for the county vehicles that we have, and they get fuel at the highway garage and we pay for that. The training and travel has the mileage reimbursement in it. So at this time, we don't have an increase in that line.
Caudill said that environmental health supplies saw an increase as well. The board voted to approve the 2023 budget with flexibility for salaries to increase. And we'll have more from CATSweek right after this.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the CASAs to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone, and it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community.
Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will someday be able to help the village as well.
a child who doesn't have a voice, maybe in their family situation or a school situation, now has a voice that can advocate for them.
I really enjoy working with children that are going through difficult times and letting them know that I care about their future.
We are privileged with our charge of representing the best interest of children. And so therefore we can advocate for exactly what they need without restriction, focusing on their best interest.
I want to repair the world one child at a time.
Welcome back to CATSweek. Assistant Director for the Arts, Holly Warren, gave an update on the Bloomington Arts Commission's financial status and the art feasibility study at their meeting on July 13th. First, Warren outlined how much the Commission has spent and how much is left for the fall grant cycle.
I just want to share that again, overall, for our Winter Arts Projects grant cycle, we allocated a total of $51,874. And so you can see here how that money was distributed amongst our existing accounts. So before the funds were distributed, we had $26,775 left over from our BAC Recover funds from 2021. So we zeroed that out by paying out some of our BAC grant funds. And then from 2021, we also had $40,000 in BUEA Zone Arts Grants funds available. Of that $40,000, we spent $17,844 during the Winter Arts Project cycle, so that leaves us with a total of $22,156 left over from the BUEA Zone Grant funds for 2021. And if you go down a little further, you'll see that we still have the total $40,000 of BUEA Zone Arts funds available still. So that makes up a lot of the money we still have to spend. Because so much of the funds from the Arts Project cycle came out of BAC versus BUEA Zone funds, we did dip into the 2022 BAC grant funds allotment. So we started with this year at $41,616. And after allocating all the funds for the BAC Arts cycle, the first one of the year, we are down to $34,361. So with the total money we have left from 22's BAC grant allotment, 21's BUA zone grant allotment, 22's BUA zone grant allotment, and our 2% increase, overall, we still have $97,349 to spend towards grants this year. That's in addition to the $3,461.65 we had to spend on operating expenses.
Warren then shared three main takeaways from the art feasibility study done by Trahan Architects.
Trahan came up with a list of what they have identified as the most important needs and factors for the arts in Bloomington. Chief among those are the need for space to make stuff. They have determined that at this point in time, we have a lot of performance venues. There's a diversity in what we have to offer as far as like what is being shown, what kind of size it is, what the seating options are. And that includes IU's facilities. So they're like, look, y'all, you're not necessarily going to benefit from a brand spanking new, like 1,000 plus venue in town. Their recommendation, instead of going that route, is to work more with IU to make their spaces more accessible to the community, either as a performer, which I know is hard, and we'll talk about that, or as an audience member. So that's one of the challenges they saw. They're like, okay, the space is there. The challenge is how do we get people effectively into those spaces?
Commission member Nick Blanford commented that although Indiana University has the facilities, he did not think IU would be willing to share their performance spaces with the public.
IU facilities, improving access, not going to happen unless it's the full force of the mayor's office, the city council, and everyone else getting in the room with the administration. The only way it's going to happen is in smaller scale collaborations, you know, arts and humanities, Gerard's office, working with small groups. But we're not touching the MAC, we're not touching the IU auditorium.
Warren said that the mayor's office wanted Trahan to look into the convention center as a means of attracting more people to town and introduce them to Bloomington's art scene. She emphasized that there are no final decisions to be made at this time. At the Monroe County Council meeting on July 12th, Councilmember Peter Iverson gave an update from the Convention and Visitor Centres Board. He said that the Convention Centre has been successful but doesn't have a big enough space to keep up with the demand.
Yes, I'd just like to share that the Convention and Visitors Center Board met on June 24th, and that tourism here in Monroe County is going very strong. So we're really excited that everyone's coming here for events and are booking hotel rooms and things like that. I did want to mention that we had 10 events that wanted to use our convention center, but there just wasn't room for those events. And so it's nice that people are reaching out to us that want to come here, but just simply are not able to because of that. And we have done some analysis and found that they would have spent around $2.6 million here in Monroe County if we had had that space. So that's just one of those indices that I thought I'd throw out there, and we're doing well, and I think we can continue chugging along.
Also at the meeting, Attorney Dave Schilling asked the Council to approve additional funding for the legal department's litigation and litigation deduction lines.
We're requesting an additional appropriation of $75,000 for our litigation line. And we have several related lines, litigation and litigation deduction. And the litigation deduction line is used to pay, to reimburse insurance companies for defense costs. Because we have a deductible of about $15,000 per case on our insurance policies. The litigation line is used for litigation expenses such as depositions, or if we need to hire outside counsel. And recently we have been involved in a few cases requiring outside counsel, one being the Huff cases in federal court and the other being the Houseman South case, also in federal court. So we're requesting this $75,000 to cover anticipated attorney's fees in those two cases. And just for purposes of putting this request together, we have allocated approximately $50,000 for the Barnes and Thornburg fees and $25,000 for the Eubanks fees for the Houseman South case.
The Council voted to approve the appropriation of funds, with Councilmember Marty Hawk voting no and Councilmember Jeff McKim abstaining due to a conflict of interest. And we'll have more from CATSweek right after this.
I'm at risk of thinking there's just no point in trying.
I'm at risk of looking in the mirror and hating what I see.
I'm at risk of being told not to tell.
But with Girls Inc. in my corner,
I will not be another statistic.
I will fight for myself.
With you in my corner, I will win.
Fuel her fire and she will change the world. Girls Inc.
Welcome back to CATSweek. At the Ellettsville Town Council meeting on July 11th, Town Manager Mike Farmer asked the Council to approve a Memorandum of Understanding with Envision Ellettsville.
So anyway, we've heard from the community, we've heard from the chamber, we've heard from staff, you might even heard from me, and we want to move forward with some of the Envision Ellettsville plan, actually all of it. What is amazing for me and what I think is excellent timing is that the Envision Ellettsville process follows and parallels the original comp plan that we already have. It parallel and follows for the last 3 years everything I've heard from the citizens and what they want. We should do this. If we had $1 million, we ought to do that. Blah blah blah. So then when we do the Envision Ellettsville process, all these things just came back to us, and the plan itself is truly a community vision plan. So there are a lot of things in the plan that are what I'd call capital projects, everything from building trails to building new parks to having a task force to help us implement transportation plans for the future, things like zoning and code upgrades, all of these things have been brought to light and been put on paper, and we want to move forward. With our memorandum of understanding, we will join forces with the Chamber and Main Street, and we will channel some of their vision and things they might want. We will channel everything in our comprehensive plan and the projects that I'd like to do, and projects that the staff has talked about working on, and we will utilize the memorandum of understanding to have an agreement, and it'll allow us to move forward in an orderly way.
Town Attorney Darla Brown went over the documents the council received and walked them through various subjects.
The first two documents are the resolution the Town Council passed back in May approving the Baker-Tilly ARPA plan for the town. So that's the first two documents, and that's pages 1 through 8. And I included that as a segue to the Envision Ellettsville plan, so you could see the overlap between the ARPA plan and the Envision Ellettsville plan. So our plan, the town's plan for ARPA funds, is flood remediation and grants. So there's overlap between what we want to do and what Envision Ellettsville wants to do. So page 9 and the next few pages are directly from the hard copy of the Envision Ellettsville vision plan that Main Street and the Chamber put together. So these are documents that were presented to the community at the meeting here back, I think, on May 17th. So page 9 is a proposed organizational structure which shows the town council at the top, the Envision Ellettsville group is in the middle, and then, at least according to the MOU, what will happen is Envision Ellettsville will determine their own structure, whatever they think is best. And again, my thought is that they've done a good job so far, so let them continue to do what they've been doing. They pick their boards, they meet as often as they want, they decide who's going to be on the boards, and then occasionally they come to town council whenever they think it's appropriate and make a pitch or suggest ideas. But that's up to Envision Ellettsville.
Councilmember Pamela Samples expressed concern that they received 35 pages to read and suggested that any vote be tabled until the next meeting to give everyone time to go through the new information. She asked Farmer if there would be any consequences for postponing the vote. Farmer said he didn't see a reason to postpone.
Well, if the board wants to do that, that's fine, but we've been on this path for a long time, and putting things off is not how you have progress. And the staff's looked at all this information. Darla's vetted it, and I think we're ready to move forward.
Councilmember Dan Swafford added that he was concerned that they don't have enough staff in the planning department to start the Envision Ellettsville project. Councilmember Scott Oldham said that although he agreed with Samples and Swafford about the details, he would like to vote on the overall partnership.
To begin this entire process, there's no action taking place beyond that commits the Planning Commission to do anything, that commits us to do anything, because there's multiple times in this document that says that the Town Council has ultimate authority to yay or nay any project that comes forward.
That's exactly right.
So right now, the only thing we're doing is selecting a partner to move forward with. So this has, and I understand what you're saying, Dan, and I agree with you, and I agree with you, Pam, as well. If you're going to digest the entire document, that would be one thing. Here is just simply the continuation and selection of a partner group to move forward with, as opposed to we're going to do everything in this book exactly as it says. Because like you, I've got a couple questions on some of the paragraphs that I think I would like to see reworded a little bit better, but that doesn't affect this agreement that we're signing tonight. That affects the minutia that comes 6 months down the road or a year down the road. Am I wrong on any of that, Mike?
President of Ellettsville Main Street, Lisa Sisko, asked the council to approve the MOU and explained why they wanted it to be voted on at this meeting instead of tabling the vote.
we had the May 17th event. There's June 17th and July 17th. We're almost 60 days beyond that, and we've kind of thought, what do we have to show for it? So we felt like we were under pressure to present something to you. We also knew in the meetings is that the Plan Commission's not slated to meet until August, which would be another month. So we feel like we have owed you to get something quickly. So I'm sorry that it seems like we're throwing it at you, but we have been working really hard to present something that makes a lot of sense. And we've broken it down into pieces. The town council has all of the authority, all of the delegation powers. Main Street and the chamber, we're not responsible for any of the decisions as far as what gets done, what doesn't get done. What we want to do is share with you the ideas from the community to present it to you as recommendations for your consideration. So I hope at least we can go forward with a memorandum of understanding. It's a memorandum, it's not a contract. It's to give an idea so anyone can see it. A memorandum starts out with a lot of whereases. It's a historical document kind of showing how did we get here at this moment in time and how are we going to go forward. We've had a positive relationship in the past, and we want to keep it going forward that way. And the plan, when you read it, if you haven't already, and we hope that you have, it calls for task forces, which is also representation from a lot of community members to get involved so that you're always getting some feedback and suggestions. And Kevin was a part of it. And we know that with the planning department, that holds a big piece of what we're going to do in the future. There was at least 47 points in the vision plan that had to do with the comprehensive plan. If we don't get that updated, then we're kind of stuck. We're kind of doing things like what you've experienced as you're making decisions and not having your government foundational documents to support it, or what we want to do is have that guiding the growth, not coming behind the 8 ball, so to speak. And we've seen, if you've been here for a long time, like a lifetime member of I have, I've seen, you know, a lot of the growth in Ellettsville has been splattered, it's been automotive focused, and now we want to be more sensible about it. We're not saying we want to spend a bunch of money, we want to invest in our community, so our kids want to stay here. We want to attract people to live here and to work here and have a place when they come home they can do things here without having to go somewhere else to spend their dollars and spend their time with their families. So I hope at least we can move forward with that memorandum of understanding.
The council voted to approve the memorandum of understanding with Envision Ellettsville on a 3-0-2 vote, with Samples and Swafford abstaining due to their concerns about the time constraint. And that's all for Cats Week. Thanks for joining us. For Cats and WFHB, I'm Martin O'Neill.